Well, hello, my beloved Lenten study participants. Here we are. We are at the very beginning of week 6. This is our last week together. It was just a little bit more than 6 weeks ago that you got an email from me on Ash Wednesday, setting up the whole study, the schedule, the format, inviting you to introduce yourselves. And boy, have we learned and shared a lot with each other since Ash Wednesday. I am so proud of the sharing, the learning, the sharing of resources coming together, the building of relationships that we have had without even one scheduled meeting together. This has all been asynchronous. I hope that format has been helpful to you. It has been a wonderful way for me to engage while balancing a family with 3 young kids and a lot of other responsibilities. Listen, I am a sentimental guy by nature, so I don't want to begin to say my goodbyes just yet because I'll get emotional. I'm going to save that for Friday. You're going to get a thank you and goodbye video from me Friday, so just know that that's coming. But gosh, it has been such a rewarding experience all week, or rather all study long for the 6 weeks that we've been together. Okay, we are in chapter 6 this week, the very final chapter of Professor Levine's book. We are headed to Gethsemane, I think, or are we headed to the Mount of Olives? Or are we headed to a garden in the Kidron Valley? Professor Levine, of course, reminds us that each gospel account has its own variation on a theme here, and perhaps the symbolism at work in each of those accounts is meant to instruct the reader about something that each particular gospel writer may be up to. So there's the first point that we're always starting each chapter with. Each account says something a little bit differently, and why is that? And let's understand what those unique perspectives are trying to tell the reader. Something else that I just want to sort of focus on here is that there's some interesting language that Jesus seems to come back to this refrain that begins with, I am, ... Now, Professor Levine reminds us of an interesting Hebrew grammatical construction that we meet elsewhere in the Hebrew Bible about I am, or I am what I will be, or I will be what I will be. But in fact, you might think about Moses when he encounters this burning bush and encounters an I am figure. And Jesus seems to have these I am constructions. And of course, we also see Jesus saying, listen, let the scriptures be fulfilled. So we're reminded within Jesus' ministry, within the gospel writers and their interpretation of these events, they are purposefully, deliberately, intentionally connecting these events to other places in the Hebrew Bible. So savor each account on its own and figure out where they fit in with other places in the Hebrew Bible. That has been what this study has been about. So if you take anything away from this Lenten journey, I hope one of the things you take away is sort of a new strategy or a refined strategy for maybe how you study the sacred scriptures. So I think we really get to cap that off here in chapter 6, the closing chapter. Something else just that I want to lift up here is the sort of final closing scene of this naked person. There's this naked person running away in this kind of closing garden scene, or the closing scene of Gethsemane. And who is that naked person running? And Professor Levine offers a couple of ideas about who that naked person may be. Well, nakedness embodies a lot of things. There's a long tradition, right? Adam and Eve discover their nakedness, and oh my, right? Stuff goes weird after that. So there's something that we're supposed to learn. Professor Levine thinks, and I think so too. What I was reminded of is the vulnerability of nakedness, the vulnerability of nudity. Now, for me, I am somebody who had a really aggressive surgical procedure a few years ago. And in fact, I'm living with a pretty serious brain cancer. Now, I just recalled that in that operation, that the very first thing that happens, and if you have had a medical procedure, you know this to be true, that you change out of your clothes and you put on your hospital gown. That is just standard practice for just about any medical procedure, whether that is an invasive surgery or just a really thorough checkup or, geez, a colonoscopy that guys like me are supposed to get at a certain age. Those are vulnerable and revealing circumstances. And we need to be reminded of that vulnerability, the rawness of Jesus' death, that it is like the shocking language of the Eucharist that we encountered in the previous chapter. It is a shock to be so laid bare, to be so vulnerable. And I think that in the gospel accounts, especially with this nakedness, we are reminded of the rawness of the loss of Jesus that will happen on Holy Friday, I'm reminded of a Buddhist teacher who does a lot of work within end-of-life care settings, a man named Frank Ostaseski. Now, I saw Frank Ostaseski give a talk. In fact, it was an interview, kind of I don't know what you call that when you have two people on stage going back and forth, a dialogue, I suppose. It was of Lucy Kalanithi, who was a medical educator and a physician at Stanford University. Her husband, Paul Kalanithi, wrote a terrific memoir. He was a neurosurgeon who was diagnosed with lung cancer. Sadly, Paul died, but left this book, When Breath Becomes Air, behind. It's a wonderful medical memoir, a wonderful memoir for anyone. So Lucy Kalanithi, the late Paul Kalanithi's wife, who saw to it that Paul's book would be published. It was published posthumously. Lucy interviews Frank Ostaseski, a really meaningful, I was there in person and it moved me. Frank Ostaseski defines vulnerability as a porousness. And we think about things that are porous, that are open, that allow a flowing through, right? We think about like osmosis or something like that. There's sort of the biomedical biology at work when we think about porousness, the porousness of a cellular membrane or something like that. But understanding vulnerability as a porousness, as a free flowing, as a fluid exchange of substances, of ideas, of feelings and thoughts, of being in the world in a very porous, exposed, raw, and vulnerable way. And how beautiful, if something that we might take away from this study is to live in such a porous way, in such a vulnerable way that exposes our nudity, exposes our nakedness, that puts us right at the brink of life where things hurt, where we will be heartbroken, and yet we will also be reminded of new life, of new beginnings as we close this week and head into Easter next week. So this is chapter 6. It is the final closing week of the study. Because I am sentimental, I will give you a proper goodbye on Friday. You're going to get another video from me. It's a 2-for-video week. The last time that happened was with the Purim holiday when you got that bonus video. So you will hear more from me. We're going to get a Wednesday discussion board prompt. We're going to get a Friday thank you and goodbye email. And Friday night, I'm delivering a reflection on Holy Friday at Frieden's. So quick plug for that, but I'm going to remind you of that again Friday. So enjoy beginning chapter 6. I'll be with you Wednesday for the discussion prompt and a goodbye Friday. It has been such a journey and a privilege of mine to be with you the past 6 weeks. Just thank you for it. Happy reading chapter 6, and I'll be back with you soon. Peace.